Tonight, President Trump impeached. The third time in history, the commander-in-chief now faces a Senate trial.
It doesn't really feel like we're being impeached.
This amid presidential counter-programming, with the impeached president undaunted, rallying supporters.
They don't want the Senate trial to become a circus.
As the political volley moves to the other side of Congress, senators look to make it quick. Plus, the stage is set for the latest Democratic presidential debate. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Impeachment impasse. Who flinches first after the historic House vote? Welcome to Faith Nation, and thanks for joining us. I'm Jenna Browder.
And I'm John Jessup. Lawmakers' vote in the House was supposed to tee up an impeachment trial in the Senate, but no sooner than the vote was recorded, the political drama certainly continues.
And right now it looks like a showdown standstill between the leaders of the House and the Senate. We begin tonight on Capitol Hill with correspondent Abigail Robertson. Abigail?
Well, Jenna, historically, as you said, the next step is for the articles to move to the Senate for a trial that's been expected to take place in the new year. But thus far, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is reluctant to confirm if and when she will make that move.
Clearly, do you understand? When we see what their process is, we will know who and how many we want to send over.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who's cleared the Senate calendar in January for a trial, quickly gave his take on the hesitation.
Looks like the prosecutors are getting cold feet in front of the entire country and second guessing whether they even want to go to trial.
President Trump accused Pelosi on Twitter of being afraid to present it to the Senate and responded to his impeachment vote in real time at a rally in Battle Creek, Michigan, Wednesday night.
This lawless partisan impeachment is a political suicide march for the Democrat Party.
Trump praised House Republicans for standing by him.
So we got every single Republican voted for us? Whoa.
3 House Democrats broke with their party to vote against at least one article of impeachment. Democrat presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard voted present on both. But President Trump took heat from both parties for taking a shot at late Michigan Congressman John Dingell, a World War II vet who served 60 years in the House, implying he might be in hell.
Maybe he's looking up, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe.
The Senate Majority and Minority leaders are meeting today for their first discussion on the rules of impeachment, but the two seem to be at odds over whether witnesses should be called forward. Back to you, John and Jenna.
Thanks, Abby. Well, after last night's vote, the Trump administration is trying to push forward.
Let's now turn to Ben Kennedy at the White House for the latest reaction from President Trump and his team. Ben, what are they saying?
Well, John, Jenna, President Trump lashed out at lawmakers for the impeachment vote, calling it an eternal mark of shame for Democrats, adding that the impeachment effort is, quote, partisan, lawless, and a political suicide march. Today, he tweeted, Pelosi feels her phony impeachment hoax is so pathetic, she is afraid to present it to the Senate, which can set a date and put this whole scam into default if they refuse to show up. Now, the commander-in-chief continues to tout that he did nothing wrong and that he has, quote, tremendous support in the Republican Party. His press secretary, Stephanie Grisham, spoke out saying Democrats will pay the political price for this move.
The president has said many times that this isn't something he necessarily wants on his resume, but it's been very clear from the start that this has been a very partisan impeachment, and history's just not going to look kindly on the Democrats led by Nancy Pelosi and Schumer and Nadler, and that's, I think, what the president has been saying.
The president feels he'll get a fair shake in the Republican-controlled Senate as lawmakers there, as Abigail just reported, they're waiting for their turn on the impeachment. John, Jenna?
Ben, the president said that he's wanted to call witnesses to the trial. When this case goes to the Senate for the trial, has the White House thrown out any names they'd like to see testify?
Well, John Trump has. He said he would like to see Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Energy Secretary Rick Perry to testify, but today his press secretary stopped short in confirming the president plans to call these guys up to the plate to talk. Today we did hear from his Treasury Secretary right here behind me, Steve Mnuchin, who also pushed back on Democrats' efforts to remove him from office. Take a listen.
I think it's purely a partisan act. Look at this. This is completely a issue of partisan, and we look forward to this going to the Senate and being moved on quickly. I'm focused on the president's economic plan, which is a huge win.
The president did talk about what Mnuchin calls a win during last night's rally with supporters in Michigan. It's there Trump pointed to the economy and unemployment for reasons the country is doing better, and under his term, that is. Now, the White House plans to use that as a selling point come 2020. But back to impeachment, the White House is moving forward with a legal strategy once it does end up in the Senate. But we've heard Senator Mitch McConnell already make clear that he does not expect Trump to be removed from office. John, Jenna?
All right, Ben, thank you. And here now, Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, Nancy Pelosi is saying she won't send these articles over until she knows what the process is going to look like in the Senate. What is the strategy here?
Well, it's a bit nutso. I mean, and you can quote me on that. That's on the record. Look, she's the queen of the House, but Mitch McConnell's king of the Senate. And you know, you got a queen and a king here. You're not going to outmaneuver a game of chess with Mitch McConnell. So this idea that she could hold up these articles of impeachment for a couple of weeks, okay, great, knock yourself out. But Mitch McConnell is not going to be rolled by Nancy Pelosi. But the strategy, in answer to your question, there's 47 Democrats in the Senate. Nancy Pelosi is hoping that they can get 4 other Republicans to vote with those Democrats and bring up their, as in the Democrats, witnesses. And also, let's remember, the minute she turns over those impeachment articles to the Senate, they're done. And Nancy Pelosi has no more say in this process.
These 4 more moderate Republicans who you're talking about. David, what's the chance that that happens?
Let me think for a second. Oh, 0. I'm sorry, less than 1%. Why don't we give it that? No, it's not going to happen. I mean, maybe Lisa Murkowski, Mitt Romney, Susan Collins, Cory Gardner, a couple. But ultimately, Mitch McConnell will be able to herd those Senate Democrats, just like Nancy Pelosi herds the Democrats in the House pretty well.
Today we heard Senator Lindsey Graham say that he's no longer in the camp to move for a motion to dismiss the House impeachment articles. He said that he would urge other Republicans in that camp against that. What are the chances that we could see the impeachment trial end before it actually begins?
No, I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, look, Andrew Johnson's impeachment trial was 2 months. Bill Clinton's was 5 weeks. I think this is going to be a couple of weeks. I think ultimately when all this is said and done, I guess you can mark the tape right now, but I believe it'll be opening, closing statements, 2 to 3 weeks. That's about it. I know Trump wants all these witnesses, as Ben was talking about, and Nancy Pelosi, the Democrats want all their witnesses. Remember, we're talking about different witnesses saying different things. But I think ultimately this will all kind of come down to McConnell and what he wants to do. And the bottom line is he wants to get this done quickly.
President Trump, he's taking a lot of heat today, David, for comments he made last night about the late Representative John Dingell. Dingell, of course, a legend in Michigan. Could this hurt Trump? How do you see this playing out?
Well, yeah, look, I mean, Donald Trump won Michigan by 0.23%. That's under 11,000 votes. I mean, he needs every single vote to win this battleground state of Michigan. And let's be honest, if I could use this intellectual word, dumb comments by Donald Trump, unforced error comments by Donald Trump, he doesn't need to do it. I mean, I get it that he's unconventional, but there's a difference between being unconventional and just heartless and just not thinking here. I mean, no discipline whatsoever. And that's a problem. Look, John Dingell is revered in the state, and even though his district is solidly Democrat, you got to remember there were 12 counties in Michigan that flipped for Trump in 2016. He can't start losing these type of counties because Dingell is revered in Michigan.
We all know Donald Trump is a master of controlling the news cycle. David, do you think this was maybe a case of that, of him trying to take the attention off of impeachment and steer that attention in another direction?
You know, he's done this from time to time. I don't think it's the case here. If you look at the context of how he was saying it, it felt like a throwaway line. It felt like he was going for a humorous line. He was in the moment with the crowd. But that is just not disciplined at all. And let's be honest, if he was more disciplined, he probably wouldn't be in the situation he is now with impeachment in terms of the transcript and what he needs to say. I get it. He's not a politician. He's unconventional. But you got to also be smart. And I don't think he was smart enough through all of this impeachment saga, and that's why he's in the pickle he is in today.
David, one more quick question before we leave. Mark Meadows, former chair of the House Freedom Caucus, also a close Trump ally, announced today that he's retiring from Congress. He said that he still plans to stay in the fight and work with President Trump. Any idea of what his next possible role might be?
Something within the Trump orbit for sure. Most likely the re-election campaign. He never promised that he would serve his full term out all the way through November. My guess is you'll see him probably walk away in about 3, 4, 5 months, right in time for that re-election campaign to get going in July.
There was some talk about him possibly replacing, before allowing Mick Mulvaney to be the interim chief of staff in the White House.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, he has been very close to Donald Trump all this time. I guess if he's going to be chief of staff, it'll be acting chief of staff, because everybody's acting, so to speak, in the Trump administration. You know what I meant.
It seems like it, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's all temporary right now, because you never know how Donald Trump's going to have it all shake out.
Yeah. All right, Chief Political Analyst David Brody, thanks for being
with
us.
Guys.
Thanks, David. Faith in the 2020 election coming up. A look at how Democrats are trying to reach religious voters.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN Newswatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN Newswatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Yes, right on time.
From Superbook.
Pepper's Pizza Palace is donating pizza for everyone today. Wait. I have big plans today.
Trust in God even when times are tough. He has a plan for your life.
Hey, we're gonna be late for the grand opening.
My parents want me to help with this outreach thing, feeding the community. What am I supposed to do here? Superbook!
Join the Superbook Club and get Superbook The Birth of Moses, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25.
Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile River, and I have a 3-month-old brother.
The Birth of Moses. Yours for a gift of only $25.
What will you do the next time the soldiers come? I do not know, but I trust God has a plan for all of us.
Superbook Club members, free streaming for seasons 1, 2, and 3 is now available.
Well, if it's not impeachment, it is 2020. Tonight is another debate night. The field of 2020 Democrats narrowing. 7 will square off in Los Angeles. Former Vice President Joe Biden will hold the center spot in the debate stage, flanked by Senator Elizabeth Warren, Mayor Pete Buttigieg, and Andrew Yang with to his right and to his left, Senators Bernie Sanders and Amy Klobuchar, and billionaire philanthropist Tom Steyer. The debate starts at 9 p.m. Eastern.
And joining us now is Jack Jenkins. He is a national reporter for Religious News Service, often writing about religion and politics. Jack, thank you so much for being with us to talk about Campaign 2020.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, voters of faith, of course, aren't a monolithic demographic. What kind of challenges does that present to presidential hopefuls when it comes to winning over religious voters, and particularly in the Democratic Party?
Right. So the reality in the Democratic Party is you have some of the most and some of the least religious voters in the country under the same umbrella, right? So a quarter of the Democratic Party claims no religious affiliation. And some of those still believe in God or have a belief in a higher power, but they don't necessarily, wake up and go to church on Sunday every week. But the other 3/4 of the party, roughly, do claim a faith affiliation, and some of them believe it very strongly. In particular, African American Democrats often have disproportionately high church attendance rates, and that's really important for Democrats in South Carolina. So you have instances where, say, a candidate might be in New Hampshire appealing to a group of voters who may not be as overtly religious as when they go down to South Carolina to go do another campaign event, maybe in a church. So you have to kind of be nimble on your feet if you're a Democrat in this election season.
Well, speaking of South Carolina, Joe Biden has announced the support of 100 faith leaders there. How is he exactly winning over the faithful in South Carolina?
Well, Joe Biden has been able to appeal to African-American voters across the board in a much more strong way than the rest of the coalition of Democratic candidates this go around. But also, he's been pretty vocal about his faith for quite some time. He's a Catholic. He connects very deeply to his Catholicism. And while that is not the same faith as many black Protestants in South Carolina, it's been something that's been very easy for him to talk about. Also, he was one of the first candidates to hire a staff member who was specifically tasked with connecting with voters of faith in the state of South Carolina specifically. So this has been a long-term game for Joe Biden, and it seems to be paying dividends.
Pete Buttigieg is such an interesting candidate. He seems to be the most vocal and the most comfortable to talk about faith openly. Is that helping him to win over voters? It is, in a very interesting way. I think what's been interesting to kind of watch in his campaign is that he's kind of given voice to a latent religious left that hasn't always been articulated in a campaign context, right? So, I was covering an event, a protest of progressive religious leaders here in Washington, D.C., and I look over and Pete Buttigieg is just standing silently in the crowd. And he's been trying to, hone in on that element of progressive people of faith and give that voice as much as he can. I mean, he was in North Carolina last week or the week before at the Church of William Barber II, who is this very influential progressive faith activist. And so he and several other candidates, but him in particular, have been trying to tap into this liberal religious, kind of mainstream that hasn't gotten as much attention. And how does that translate with conservative evangelicals?
It's interesting. It depends on which one you talk to. So sometimes you'll get these reactions from conservative evangelicals that when they hear something that Pete Buttigieg says or Joe Biden says, you'll say, well, that's just a different faith than mine. But I've actually heard some conservative evangelicals talk about Pete Buttigieg in particular a little bit differently. They say that he feels like, whether he shares the same faith as them, they do think that he does respect faith in general. And whether this is, proper or earned or not, the Democratic Party has earned a reputation among conservative evangelicals that it is hostile towards faith. So when you have people like Pete Buttigieg arguing or at least articulating something different, I think that at least it may not win over someone's vote, but it may at least put the hackles down a little bit.
How do a lot of these 2020 Democrats, how do they square issues like abortion, for example, where many faithful people are not pro-choice?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be one of the dividing lines, right? So there might be conservative evangelicals or conservative Catholics who actually probably resonate strongly with someone like Joe Biden or someone like Pete Buttigieg or someone like Cory Booker. But when it comes down to how they feel about abortion, there's going to be a hard division there. And there's not a ton of breaking around that. I mean, we have all these polls that show even the average American's view of abortion is more complicated than the division of the parties makes it seem. But at the end of the day, I do think that continues to be and will continue to be an animating factor in this election and in the general election, because lest we forget, meanwhile, there's this whole other conversation happening in the rest of the country where there's many laws being passed at the state level regarding abortion, and Democrats have already tried to capitalize that to, make sure that they bolster the votes among the Democratic base, and saying, holding positions that are for abortion rights. Whether that would play well in the general election, trying to sway some votes of evangelicals in Michigan and Pennsylvania, that remains to be a live question.
All right, Jack Jenkins with Religion News Service. Good to see you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, Jack.
When we come back, how the U.S. is trying to fight human rights violations in Iran.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Catholic Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Watch Christian World News, Saturday at 5 p.m. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com to get your copy today.
And welcome back. Tonight, the United States is upping the ante against Iran.
Yeah, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announcing new measures to compel the regime to abandon its human rights violations. CBN National Security Correspondent Eric Phillips joins us with more. Eric?
Jenna and John, the announcement from Pompeo comes a day after the United Nations took actions on Iran for ongoing atrocities, including, listen to this, carrying out the death penalty for children, girls as young as 9 years old, boys as young as 13.
Iran's human rights violations are worse than unacceptable. They're evil and they're wrong.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo spoke in no uncertain terms about persistent abuse in Iran, which he calls a violation of international law.
I have a message for the leaders of the regime. If you seek to recover respect from your people and from the world, if you seek stability and prosperity for a once great nation, you must respect the commitments that you've made. You must respect human rights.
Just last month, Iranian security forces reportedly killed hundreds of protesters, including children, for rallying against higher gas prices. Pompeo says the U.S. has been gathering information on various rights abuses, numbering in the tens of thousands.
3 women handed out flowers on the Tehran metro on International Women's Day in March. They weren't wearing the hijab. The regime sentenced them to between 16 and 23 years in prison for propaganda against the state and for moral corruption.
Thursday, Pompeo announced 3 initiatives aimed at persuading Iran to change. They include redesignating Iran as a country of particular concern under the Iran Religious Freedom Act, the Treasury Department sanctioning 2 Iranian judges whose sentences routinely violate human rights, and the U.S. restricting visas for those deemed most responsible for persecuting the Iranian people.
Thugs killing people's children will not be allowed to send their own children to study in the United States of America. The United States will stand and has stood under President Trump with the Iranian people.
While there has not been an official response to this action, the Iranian Foreign Ministry condemned the UN resolution as partial, confrontational, and meant to serve political objectives. John and Jenna, back to you.
Thank you, Eric. Coming up, Santa Claus comes to visit some very deserving families. We explain when we come back.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link, Tuesday nights at 6:30.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Protect your sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
I am Regent's first ROTC graduate student.
Welcome back. Well, those of you who are parents know having sick kids is tough, especially during the holidays.
That's why one hospital security guard in Missouri is working to help bring a little bit of joy to families with kids in the NICU. For the past 6 years, Anthony Cook has traded his security uniform for something a little more merry and bright, a Santa suit. He visits babies in the NICU, posing for pictures that families can always keep as a memento.
They'll have that keepsake forever, you know, that picture when these kids were older, they're going to look back and go, you know, I didn't get to go home, but I got to see Santa.
And there's a reason why Cook brings this bit of joy to the NICU, and it's near and dear to his heart. 31 years ago, his own daughter spent time in a similar unit. He wants to give back by bringing a little bit of hope to these families, adding he knows exactly how they feel. And I'd say that's a great way to share the Christmas spirit.
Yeah, and to pay it forward.
Paying it forward.
Yeah, well, that's going to do it for Faith Nation.
Have a great night. See you tomorrow.